Hi, this is Mrs. Erickson, and this is the last part of digestion for Chapter 2. This is Section 4, the final digestion and absorption of our nutrients from the food we eat. You can go ahead and get your binder out, and you can follow along on pages 37 and 38. On page 37, it starts out with the main ideas for the small intestines. You have to remember that yesterday we talked about the beginning of digestion. Food went from the mouth to the esophagus to the stomach. Where does the food go after the stomach? It now enters the small intestines. The small intestines has a lot of helpers in this digestive process. The food doesn't go to the helpers, it only goes in the small intestines. One of those helpers is the liver. The liver helps by making bile, which breaks down fat in our food, and this bile flows into the small intestines. So food doesn't go into the liver at all, but the liver produces bile that flows into the small intestines. That would be considered chemical digestion. The pancreas, another organ involved in chemical digestion, helps digest food in the small intestines by producing enzymes that flow into the small intestines. These enzymes will break down all three parts of food: starches, protein, and fat, whereas bile only breaks down fat. How can you remember that? Bile is a short word, fat is a short word. So the liver produces bile that breaks down just fat. Your pancreas is pretty important. It produces a whole bunch of enzymes that flow into the small intestines and breaks down starches, proteins, and fat. The other thing you need to know about the small intestine that we're going to talk about is villi. Villi, or villus, is found inside the small intestines, and it's little finger-like projections that increase the surface area for quicker absorption of the nutrients into the blood. And this is the first time we've talked about absorption of nutrients into our blood, because this is the only place where we get the carbons, hydrogens, and oxygens, and nitrogens from the food we eat into our blood. The small intestines are responsible for that. Okay, so number one, what takes place in the small intestines? What you need to write there is almost all of the chemical digestion takes place in the small intestines, and all the absorption takes place in the small intestines. So those are the two things you need to remember of what happens there: chemical digestion and absorption. The small intestines, as you can see in this picture, are kind of tucked inside or around inside the large intestine. They call it the small intestine because of the diameter. It's smaller in diameter than the large intestine is. So the small intestine is located inside of the large intestine, not inside of it, but in between it. And the small intestines are about 6 meters long. 6 meter sticks fit inside your abdomen, all coiled up. Number 2 asks to list the 3 organs that produce enzymes and secretions used in the small intestines. So the small intestines themselves secrete these enzymes, the liver helps secrete enzymes called bile, and the pancreas secretes enzymes. They all help break down the rest of the food molecules that the stomach couldn't do. They all break it down in the small intestines. So here's a picture of what it looks like inside of you. The liver is a huge organ, and you can see, I'll show you a better picture later. The pancreas is tucked inside here. This is the stomach, and then the stomach just kind of turns into the small intestines right here. And all of these work together: the liver, the gallbladder, the stomach, the pancreas, and the small intestines. The blue and the red are the veins and arteries that are going to feed all of your organs. Number 3 asks the largest organ inside the body, which is located in the upper right part of the abdomen. Your answer there should be the liver. So when you look at the abdomen and all of the organs that are in there, the liver is quite large. This is a close-up of the liver and how it is connected to the small intestines. Here is where the bile comes from the liver, flows down what we call the bile duct, behind the stomach and the small intestines, and it connects up to the small intestines right here. That's how we get bile into the small intestines. So a substance made by the liver that breaks up fat is called bile. The liver has several other functions in the human body. This isn't the only thing it does, but this is what we're going to study in the digestive system. So here's your liver. This green thing is coming from the liver, and it hooks up, goes behind the pancreas, and hooks up to the small intestines right here. That's how bile that the liver produces gets into your small intestines. What is the role of the gallbladder? The gallbladder stores the bile that the liver makes. The gallbladder then delivers the bile to the small intestines when you eat something that's kind of fatty and your body needs help breaking it apart. So here's the gallbladder. It's just a little green pouch that you'll see underneath the liver, and you can see how the common bile duct, it meets up with the gallbladder. And so the gallbladder and the liver both put bile into this duct and take it to the small intestines. Now, you can live without your gallbladder. So what they would do is they would cauterize or close it up right here, take that infected gallbladder out, and now the bile is just going to go directly into your small intestines. You just won't have the storage anymore. And people do fine without their gallbladder. Number 6 talks about the enzymes produced by the pancreas. Those enzymes break down all parts of the food that give us energy, starches, proteins, and fats. So here's a picture of the pancreas. They call it a finger-shaped organ, or and you can see that it has a duct in it also, and that is where all those enzymes dump into the small intestines again. So you've got the pancreatic duct going in there, and you've got the bile duct going into the small intestines to help with chemical digestion. And of course, when we talk about the pancreas, we will talk about insulin too one day in class. Questions 7 and 8. The small finger-shaped structure that covers the inner surface of the small intestines are called villi. Villi help absorb the nutrients from the food into the bloodstream. This is the first time now that we have talked about food getting into our blood so it can go to all the cells in our body, because this is the only place it happens. Villi increase the surface area of the small intestines. The more surface area, the quicker those nutrients can get into your blood and get to the cells that need them. So here's a picture of the inside of a small intestine, and you can see all of these little finger-like projections. That's a villi. So the food particles go up in there, and so you just have way more surface area for it to go out into the blood. Here's another picture. It just shows the villi and how they are kind of finger-like projections. This would be the small intestine lining. This is the inside of it. So villi help increase the absorption of our nutrients into the blood. Number 9, we move now to the large intestines. So the food has gone from the mouth to the esophagus, to the stomach, to the small intestines, where all the absorption takes place, so there's no nutrients left. So what's the role of the large intestines? Bacteria in the large intestines feed on the material passing through it, and helpful bacteria also are found in the large intestines, and some of that bacteria will help further break down food, but will also help your body make certain vitamins. Like vitamin K, for instance, is something that is produced in the large intestine. But mostly the large intestine is just to break the food down a little bit further. This is where any extra water from the food that you aren't going to get rid of will go into the blood. So the large intestines are responsible for absorbing extra water too into the body. Number 10, it asks The large intestine functions are to absorb water into the bloodstream, any extra water that's in the food that we can use, and to prepare undigested food for elimination. And mostly this undigested food should be like fiber. All the nutrients should be taken out, and it's just the waste that's left. Numbers 11 and 12, the short tube at the end of the large intestine where waste material is compressed, that's called the rectum. The rectum stores the waste material until the wastes are removed from the body through the anus. And that is the digestive system.